We was selling drugs. We was robbing and like that, you know what I'm saying?
He allegedly attacked two fans with a baseball bat. Christopher Wallace was outside a nightclub in New York when two men asked for an autograph. Wallace refused and there was an argument. The autograph seekers tried to flee in a cab, but Wallace gave chase.
It's an unfortunate thing that a lot of people have to get into, but, you know, unfortunately, luckily you are out of it now, but like drug dealing.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, slinging on.
Ask anybody about Biggie, and they'll swear he was the greatest rapper to ever touch a mic.
That's what I did, you know what I'm saying? If I had a McDonald's job, most of the songs would have been about Big Macs and fries and, you know, stuff like that. I hustled, that's what my game was, so that's what I was rapping about.
The real king of New York. But behind all that larger-than-life legend was somebody living wild.
I eliminated all the bull, all the drugs, all the street, all the extra. That's out of my life now. It's strictly business and entertainment.
Taking risks and moving in the kind of chaos most people only hear stories about. He was mixed up in everything. Street dealing, assaults, robberies, plus a stack of arrests that stayed following him around.
We had like a little organization in elementary school, the Hawks. We used to actually have a person that kept the money, a person that dealt with arms. We didn't have guns or nothing, but it was just, you know, it was set up in a certain way, and Big set this whole thing.
When Biggie's pops dipped out on him and his mom, Valletta Wallace locked in and refused to let her son go without. She hustled 2 jobs, teaching preschool during the day and substituting whenever she could, just so Biggie never felt the struggle creeping in. She wanted structure in his life.
Big was a gambler. And he would gamble with friends, family, whatever. Put your money down. You want to come out? Let's go. Big will go get a room somewhere.
Something clean, something stable, so she put him in private Catholic schools and did her best to shield him from the madness in the streets around them. And for a minute, it actually worked. Biggie wasn't just smart, he was sharp, funny, and naturally gifted with words.
She waking up to go to work in the morning, I'm still on the corner, still trying to finish my little bit of drugs. She felt like she failed, you know.
He even won awards and made teachers brag about him. But those Brooklyn streets were calling, and that call gets louder when you're young and trying to figure out where you fit in. By the time the crack wave hit Brooklyn in the late 80s, temptation was sitting on every corner. For a teenager in Bed-Stuy, avoiding it was almost impossible. Valletta would later admit she never knew how deep things really got. She once said, "I found out about my son and his little antics through his own lyrics and magazine stories. She read it all and realized, huh? I never knew." Biggie's street chapter started way earlier than folks imagined. By the time he was 12, he was already out there selling crack on Fulton Street with his boy Roland Ole Young. They weren't loud about it. They were smart, moving low-key, stacking cash, and keeping their heads down so cops wouldn't look twice. And the money? Over $2,000 a week. Wild numbers for kids who were supposed to be doing homework instead. But fast money always comes with heavy consequences. Ole kept trying to steer Biggie toward music, telling him he had too much raw talent to be wasting it outside like that. But Biggie wasn't ready to leave the block alone, not yet. In 1989, at just 17, he caught his first major charge, felony weapon possession. He got 5 years probation, which should have been a warning shot, something to slow anybody down. But Big just kept moving. The money, the lifestyle, the streets, it had already wrapped around him, and he wasn't ready to let it go. A year later in 1990, they locked him up again, this time for violating the same probation he was already walking on. But even that didn't slow him down. By then, hustling wasn't just a habit, it was built into him. By 1991, Biggie was moving smarter and thinking way bigger. Instead of staying locked into the New York scene, he took his whole operation down south to North Carolina, Raleigh to be exact, where crack prices were way higher than what he could get back in Brooklyn. He bounced between Bed-Stuy and Raleigh, flipping product for 4 times the profit, stacking crazy money. But moving in different states came with different dangers, and eventually the heat caught up. He got scooped again, this time on serious substance charges, and ended up sitting 9 months behind bars. Funny thing is, that jail stretch ended up flipping his whole life path. While he was down there, he crossed paths with DJ Mr. C and DJ 50 Grand, 2 dudes who instantly saw he had something way bigger than the street hustle in him. Once he got out, 50 Grand pushed him to lay down a demo, the now legendary Microphone Murderer. That track was raw, unfiltered, pure Brooklyn energy. The tape drifted into the hands of Sean Puffy Combs at Uptown Records, and Puff couldn't deny what he heard. Biggie had something real. What made it even crazier was that Biggie was still halfway in the streets while all this was unfolding. Still moving work, still dealing with his substance case, still living that double life. 1 foot in the trap, 1 foot in the booth. But the timing was lining up perfectly. His music was blowing up just as the street life was closing in on him. By the summer of 1995, Biggie was already a full-on superstar. Ready to Die had launched him from the block on Fulton Street straight into rap royalty. He was selling out shows, making real money, and living larger than anybody from his old block ever imagined. But Big also had a quick fuse, and whenever he felt disrespected, he reacted fast, sometimes too fast. And that same short fuse pulled him straight into one of the wildest legal moments of his whole career. It kicked off with a show that was supposed to go down in Camden, New Jersey. Biggie had been booked, everything was set. Then out of nowhere, the promoter canceled the entire event. Maybe ticket sales were weak, maybe the payment got messed up. Nobody knows the real story. What mattered was one thing: the promoter refused to pay Biggie his full fee. And to Big, that was straight disrespect. So when he ran into that promoter again, the energy shifted instantly. Big pressed him about the canceled show, demanding what he was owed. The promoter tried explaining, but Big wasn't trying to hear none of it. The argument got loud, fast. Voices started rising, the tension snapped, and next thing you know, fists were flying. Biggie swung first, and he didn't just tap the man, he cracked him so hard that the promoter's jaw broke on the spot. And it didn't end there. While the promoter was laid out, Biggie scooped his jewelry, his pager, and even his mobile phone. And back then, a portable cell phone was a luxury worth close to $1,000. At that point, this wasn't just some heated scuffle anymore. The law saw it as a straight robbery. Prosecutors didn't treat it like a simple fight or somebody losing their temper. They charged Biggie with robbery and aggravated assault, calling it a violent offense since force was used to take the man's possessions. There were even whispers claiming it was armed robbery, even though no evidence ever showed he had a weapon.
Yo, check it out. I want to give a shout out to my borough. Brooklyn is up in here, representing.
Those fists did all the damage by themselves. What made the situation messier was Big not sticking around afterward. He went right back to performing like nothing even happened. Meanwhile, the promoter was in the hospital, and the police were already building a case. A warrant went out for Biggie's arrest, and they eventually picked him up in Pennsylvania after a show in Glen Mills. In the end, the criminal case didn't fully hold. The robbery charges ended up getting dismissed, but the promoter didn't walk away quietly. He pushed the whole thing into civil court, and in January 1997, just 2 months before Biggie's passing, a judge ordered him to cough up $41,000 in damages. People close to Big swear the promoter was shady, claiming he played games with the money and tried to cut corners on the payout. Maybe there was truth in that. But even if Big had every right to feel disrespected, the way he reacted, fast, explosive, and violent, showed another side of him, the side that refused to let disrespect slide for even a second. And here's the wildest part. Today, all those old legal documents from the case, Biggie's fingerprints, the arrest forms, even copies of the settlement, they're treated like collector gold.
The singer, whose real name is Christopher Wallace, was outside a nightclub in New York when two men asked for an autograph. Wallace refused, and there was an argument. The autograph seekers tried to flee in a cab, but Wallace gave chase.
Some of that paperwork goes for hundreds of thousands of dollars now, turning one of his messiest moments into some of the most expensive memorabilia on the market. Biggie was sitting at the top of the whole rap world. He'd just been crowned Rapper of the Year, and One More Chance was smashing the charts, debuting right next to Michael and Janet Jackson's Scream. He was living big, rolling with Bad Boy, and finally eating off the dreams he once imagined on cold Brooklyn nights when success felt a million miles away. But even with the fame, money, and all the spotlight, Biggie still carried that Bed-Stuy energy deep inside him. The streets didn't just fade away, they stayed wired into him. And one wild night at the Palladium in Manhattan proved it loud and clear. It was early morning on March 23rd, 1996. The Palladium was still buzzing from Faith Evans' performance. Biggie's wife at the time, Big was outside cooling out with his crew and his right-hand man, D-Rock Butler, when two young fans walked up. They weren't looking for trouble. They just wanted autographs. Simple. But something in the air flipped the vibe instantly. Words started flying, attitudes shifted, and the tension jumped from 0 to 100. The fans realized the energy wasn't safe and hopped into a taxi, trying to get out of there fast. But Biggie wasn't about to let it slide. He and D-Rock jumped into their own car and tailed the cab through Manhattan like something out of a movie. When the taxi stopped at a red light near Union Square, Big hopped out with a baseball bat in his hand, and that's when everything exploded. Biggie didn't just swing once, he shattered the taxi window while yelling, heated, and even throwing out threats that had the guys inside terrified. D-Rock backed him up, and one of the men in the cab got punched during the chaos. It was quick, wild, and the kind of moment nobody expected from a man with the #1 rap album in the country.
We used to come to the house to have guns on us, You know, we used to have like all type of pocket knives and gadgets and, you know, all type of in the crib.
By the time the cops rolled up, the whole scene was laid out in front of them. No mystery, no confusion. Biggie and D-Rock were arrested right there, charged with assault, weapon possession, and criminal mischief. For a superstar, this could have turned into a legal disaster real fast. But in the end, Big walked away with just 100 hours of community service. A light outcome, considering how explosive that night had really been. No jail time, no probation, no huge fines, nothing. It was basically a light tap on the wrist, especially considering he had just swung on two dudes with a baseball bat in public. But only a few months after that wild Palladium situation, Biggie landed himself right back in deep trouble, this time at his own crib in Teaneck, New Jersey. It kicked off with an anonymous call to police. Somebody said there was suspicious activity happening at Biggie's house. When officers pulled up, they claimed they could smell weed drifting straight out the place, and that was all they needed to push for a search warrant. Before Biggie even knew what was happening, cops were at his front door with paperwork in hand, ready to flip the whole house upside down. And what they found had everybody's jaw dropping. This wasn't just a little weed and some loud music. The spot looked like a mini armory. Police found multiple automatic weapons, including a rifle with the serial number filed off, which by itself is a whole federal problem. They also found around 50 grams of weed and a handful of people inside, most of them part of Biggie's circle. Lil Cease, Biggie's close friend and junior MAFIA member, was there too, and he caught charges right alongside Big.
Trouble-plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas.
The whole scene had people scratching their heads like, why would a chart-topping rapper living in a quiet New Jersey suburb have automatic weapons with wiped serial numbers? This didn't look like some regular just-in-case protection. It looked organized, like its own street-style security setup. People around Biggie tried explaining it differently. They said this wasn't him trying to act like some tough guy. He genuinely felt unsafe after Tupac got shot. And with the East Coast versus West Coast drama getting dangerous, Biggie was paranoid. He knew there were folks out there who didn't wish him well. His fear wasn't fake.
That's what I did, you know what I'm saying? If I had a McDonald's job, most of the songs would have been about Big Macs and fries and, you know, stuff like that. I hustled, that's what my game was, so that's what I was rapping about.
But the way he tried protecting himself only dug him into deeper messes. And that wasn't the only run-in he had around that time. Not long after, he got jammed up again, this time back in Brooklyn. The story goes another anonymous tip came in saying Biggie was sitting in his car smoking weed. When police pulled up, there he was, chilling in his luxury ride, puffing away like the world couldn't touch him. Lil Cease was riding with him again, along with another friend named Lamont Mosley. It was another moment showing how Biggie, even with fame and money, was still moving like the same Brooklyn kid who didn't think twice about anything until it was too late. The cops didn't find much that night, just some weed, but it was still enough for them to write up all 3 of them on possession charges. What made the whole thing hit even harder was the timing. This arrest happened just 2 days after Tupac passed away in Las Vegas. Pac had been shot in a drive-by on September 7th, 1996, and the entire hip-hop world was shaken. So Biggie getting arrested right after that felt eerie to a lot of people. Conspiracy theories were already flying everywhere about who was responsible for Pac's unaliving, even though this weed bust was small and he was released shortly after. The moment still added extra tension and noise around Biggie's name. People were already paranoid, already whispering, and this just made the talk even louder. But one thing that truly made Biggie stand out from rappers who came after him wasn't just his flow or his storytelling. It was how straight up honest he was about his own life. He never talked about the streets like he was pretending or playing a character. He talked about it because he actually lived it. His debut album, Ready to Die, dropped on September 13th, 1994, the same exact day President Bill Clinton signed the 1994 crime bill into law, the one that ended up hurting poor black communities across the country for years. The timing was almost poetic, like 2 different versions of America and crime dropping at the same time. While the government was cracking down, Biggie was laying out the truth of what shaped him. On Gimme the Loot, Big went straight back to his teenage years, running the block, doing stick-ups and mobbing with his crew. He rapped about flashing guns, hitting licks, and splitting cash after robberies. He even mentioned how one of his boys took the blame for a gun case, hiding the weapons and doing the time for it. Big said that same friend was supposed to be getting out around 93. Then on Machine Gun Funk, he switched gears but kept the same raw energy, the crack life, the pressure, the paranoia. He rapped like he was showing you a movie scene. serving fiends, dodging cops, watching his back every second, and staying high just to numb the chaos around him. And on Warning, Biggie turned into a full-blown cinematic storyteller. The track played out like a crime thriller. Phone calls, threats, betrayals, all delivered with the same calm confidence of someone who'd really lived through setups and midnight knocks at the door. Big wasn't glorifying anything. He was giving people the real, the world he survived, the world that shaped him into who he was. And that raw honesty is what kept fans glued to his music then and still keeps his legacy alive today. That track plays out like a whole short film. Biggie gets a call from somebody warning him that a crew is plotting to rob him, and instantly he goes into survival mode, loading up weapons, getting ready for whatever comes next. "Who the F is this paging me at 5:46 in the morning?" he says, calm but dangerous, setting the tone like he's narrating a movie scene. But one of the most powerful joints on the album was Things Done Changed. This was Big stepping back and looking at what pushed him into the streets in the first place. When he said, "If I wasn't in the rap game, I'd probably have a key knee-deep in the crack game. Cause the streets is a shortstop. Either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot." He wasn't exaggerating. That was the real Brooklyn in the 80s and early 90s. Young black men didn't have many doors open for them. The system wasn't offering real opportunities. So the street stepped in as the only job that paid fast. And Biggie painted that reality with painful honesty. Then at the very end of the album, he dropped a song named Suicidal Thoughts, one of the darkest, most haunting ending tracks in rap history. The whole song is framed like a phone call between Big and Puff. Biggie admits he's done so much dirt, from dealing to extortion, that he doesn't feel like peace is even possible for him anymore. He says, "I know my mother wished she got an effing abortion. I wonder if I died, would tears come to her eyes?" Those lines hit like a brick. There's no bragging, no tough talk, just a man wrestling with everything he's done and all the weight he's been carrying. Another thing that stands out about Biggie's real-life criminal path is how different the justice system treated him once he got fame behind his name. Most people hitting armed assaults, substance charges, and weapons cases don't walk out with light punishments. But Big did. That 100 hours of community service for smashing a taxi with a bat, anybody else probably would have sat down for real time. But Biggie had top lawyers, industry backing, and money, and that changed everything. Every time he got arrested, he posted bail, went home, and jumped right back into the studio like nothing slowed him down. His career kept rising even while the street drama followed him, showing just how wild and complicated his climb to the top really was. The same justice system that crushed thousands of young black men over small charges seemed to treat Biggie completely differently. Even with open cases hanging over him, his career never slowed for a second. He was still racking up awards, still getting Grammy nominations, still being crowned the king of New York like nothing could touch him. Record labels didn't pull back either. They leaned in. His criminal past didn't hurt his image. It actually fed into the legend they were selling. And after his passing in 1997, most of that gritty history started fading into the background. Biggie stopped being seen as a real person who lived a chaotic, dangerous life. He became a symbol, a martyr, locked forever at 24, right at the peak of his greatness. People still debated his unaliving, still talked about the East Coast versus West Coast drama, still played his music nonstop. But his crimes, the street life, the chaos he moved through, that part rarely got talked about. And the wild part is how different his story is from Tupac's. Pac's rap sheet became part of his myth, part of how people defined him. Biggie's past, though, it got swallowed up by the legend he left behind. Polished over, cleaned up, turned into something people barely mention anymore. What do you think about Biggie's history? Should it be talked about more, or should the focus stay on the music and the legacy he left behind? Drop your take in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe and share, and I'll catch you on the next one.